All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to say call Haloyam Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rakah Quitash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who have taught me this truth and who rule well in this truth. Shalom to the 144,000 and the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel that is scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Peace and mercy unto you. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you are the true Hebrew Israelites that the Bible speaks of. You are the true chosen people of the book. All right, so once again, I'm going to go into this book called Seeds of Destruction, all right, by William Engdahl, all right, the hidden agenda of genetic manipulation, all right, because this book goes into, how Esau destroys, all right, the food supply, all the crops, turning them all into GMOs, all right, genetically modifying, all right, and manipulating the genes and DNAs of foods. All right, and in the last video I did was going into this book. I went into chapter 5, and I might do a continuation on that video if it be Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai's will. But I want to get into another chapter. All right, chapter 9. All right, so let's get into that. All right, and Esau, Edom, he uses you Israelites, you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans as test subjects, man. All right, and we gonna get it. We went into that in the last video, and we gonna get into that in this video as well. All right, right here, all right, because the last video was talking about how the elite bankers they used you Puerto Ricans, man. Which you Puerto Ricans are from the are Israelites from the tribe of Ephraim. All right, how they used y'all as test subjects and guinea pigs, man. All right, and they sterilized the women, so they're not able to give birth and all of that. All right, so let's get into it, man. All right, chapter 9, a revolution in world food production begins. All right, Argentina is the first guinea pig. All right, which you Argentinians, all right, are also Israelites from the tribe of Naphtali. You Chileans and you Argentinians, all right, y'all from the y'all Israelites from the tribe of Naphtali. All right, just like Tobit. All right, so let's continue reading. It says, by the end of the 1980s, a global network of genetically trained molecular biologists had developed. A mammoth Rockefeller GMO project was launched. Its chosen location was Argentina, where David Rockefeller and Rockefeller's Chase Manhattan Bank had cultivated close ties to the newly named President Carlos Menem. All right, the agricultural land and the population of Argentina were slated to become the first mass testing ground, the first guinea pigs for GMO crops. All right, so you Israelites are nothing but guinea pigs, test subjects. All right, to test GMO crops, genetically modified organisms, man. All right, and I have done lessons on another book called Population Control by Jim Mars. I've done many lessons on that book. All right, that book goes into all the ways Esau, Edom, starting with the elite bankers, go about depopulating this earth. All right, and poisoning the water supply, the food supply, is one of those ways. Bringing on GMO crops, which that book goes into the dangers of GMOs, man. And also this book as well. All right, it says the agricultural land and the population of Argentina were slated to become the first mass testing ground, the first guinea pigs for GMO crops. So you're nothing but guinea pigs and test subjects, you Israelites, to Esau, man. All right, he's the damn devil, but y'all want to love this damn devil. You can't wait to go home and hug this man. you can't wait. You can't wait to have an Edomite best friend. Right? It says, you coon Negroes, man, and you spics. It says, its backers hailed the introduction of GMO agriculture. Excuse me. Its backers hailed the introduction of GMO agriculture as nothing less than a second green revolution, a reverence to the introduction of modern agriculture production techniques after World War II. In particular, special wheat hybrids and chemical fertilizers were promoted under the rubric that they would increase per hectare crops yields in Mexico, India, and other developing lands. All right. And we know creating hybrids, hybrid anything is against the scriptures. All right, because you're not supposed to mingle seeds together. All right, you're not supposed to get a seed from one plant or fruit or vegetable, and then get another seed from another plant, fruit, or vegetable. Then mingle those seeds together, bring them together, and then now you got a new hybrid fruit or plant. Right, same thing with animals. Esau put the lion and the tiger together. Now you got a damn liger. All right? You're not supposed to be mingling seeds out here, man. Creating new animals and plants and fruits and all that, man. But that's Esau Edom with his God complex, right? He's trying to be like the Most High, like the scriptures say. In 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, he wants to create new things, right? Because he wants to be like the Most High. Right? He wants to create new plants and animals and fruits and vegetables. All these hybrids, right? It says in particular, special wheat hybrids and chemical fertilizers were promoted under the rubric that they would increase per hectare crop yields in Mexico, India, and other developing lands. In a short space of just 8 years, worldwide acreage planted with GMO crops grew to 167 million acres by 2004, an increase of some 40-fold. That acreage represented an impressive 25% of total land under agriculture cultivation in the world, suggesting GMO crops were well on the way to fully dominating world crop production, at least in basic crops, within a decade or even less. And that's the Lord that let that happen, man. All right? Because it's prophecy in Ezekiel, the 4th chapter. All right? That the children of Israel, you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, will eat their bread defiled amongst the Gentiles, man. So we're out here eating nothing but garbage, poison, waste, chemicals, drugs. So it says over 2/3 of that acreage, or 106 million acres, was planted by the world's leading GMO advocate, the United States. All right, yeah. The United States is where you find the most vile, the most poisonous, all right? And yeah, the most vile and the most poisonous food. When you go outside of America, the foods don't have to say non-GMO or USDA organic for it to be organic. It says Let's keep reading. It says the fact its proponents argued proved there was a high degree of confidence on the part of the US government and consumers, as well as farmers, that GMO crops offer substantial benefits over conventional crops. All right. Let's keep reading. It says by 2024, Argentina was second after the United States in size of acreage planted with GMO crops. Oh man. It says with 34 million acres of plant and you gotta go to they gotta do it in a country where there's Jake, right? They couldn't do it in uh Italy, right? Or France, or all right. It says it says where was I? I'll just start from the top. It says by 2024, Argentina was second after the United States in size of acreage planted with GMO crops, with 34 million acres of planting. All right, far smaller but fast expanding GMO countries, including Brazil, which is, you Brazilians are also Israelites from the tribe of Asher. All right, which in early 2025 repealed a law banning planting GMO crops. All right, they argued the crops had already proliferated so widely it was not possible to control the spread. Canada, South Africa, and China all had significant GMO crop programs in place by them. So all, bro, this is why, because the Israelites are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. See, the Israelites, you can't escape the curses, man. You can't escape the curses because you're going to have Israelites in Canada, South Africa, China. All right, like it's stating right here. All had significant GMO crop programs in place by them. All right. Close behind them and moving fast to catch up were Romania, Bulgaria, and Poland. Former Soviet Union satellites, all right, rich in agriculture, land, and loose in regulations. All right, Indonesia, the Philippines, India, Colombia, Honduras, and Spain also reported significant GMO planting. All right, and all these nations is where Jake is scattered, man. You're gonna have Jake in Indonesia, the Philippines, and India, of course, Colombia and Honduras. All right, you're gonna have Jake in Spain. Like I said, you can't escape the curses, man. All right, it says according to data compiled by the Pew Foundation of the United States, many other poorer countries were reported to have been targeted by companies promoting their GMO crops and special herbicide and pesticide chemicals. Yeah, all right. And like I said, I done videos on a book called Population Control by Jim Mars, and it goes into the herbicides and the pesticides and the insecticides. All right, and what it does to the people. It destroys them on a level that's crazy, bro. It zombifies the people. What it does to your mind, and just straight literally putting poison, literal poison chemicals on the crops. Monsanto and all that. It says many other poorer countries were reported to have been targeted by companies promoting their GMO crops and special herbicides and pesticide chemicals. All right. According to the Pew study, 85% of farmers planting GMO crops in 2004 were resource poor. All right. Most were in developing countries, the same countries struggling with IMF reforms and high foreign debts. All right. It says no country saw such a radical transformation and at such an early stage of its fundamental structure of agriculture holdings as did Argentina. All right, which you Argentinians are Israelites, man, from the tribe of Naphtali. All right, Esau Edom hates your guts with all his heart, and that's why he will use y'all Israelites as test subjects, man, because he know that shit is not good, bro. All right, the history of GMO agriculture and the Argentine soybean revolution was a case study for a nation's systematic loss of food self-sufficiency in the name of progress. All right, up to the beginning of the 1980s, Argentina had been remarkable for the standard of living it provided its population. Let me read that again. It says, up to the beginning of the 1980s, Argentina had been remarkable for the standard of living it provided its population. The agricultural system, partly as a result of the Juan Perón era, was diverse, productive, and dominated by small family farms. A typical Argentine farmer in the 1970s would raise a small amount of crops such as vegetables or wheat, husband small poultry, a dairy herd, and occasionally beef cattle on a small plot of land, which was held over decades by right of possession. Argentine beef quality was so high in the 1970s that it rivaled that of Texas beef as the world's highest standard of quality. Up to the 1980s, the rich land and the farm culture typically produced large surpluses beyond domestic food needs. Significantly, government farm subsidies were non-existent and farmers' debt were minimal. All right, but then Esau came up in there, right? It says how a debt crisis makes Argentina a soybean giant. All right, it says that all changed with the 1980s Argentina debt crisis, following the sharp rise in worldwide oil prices during the 1970s. All right, it says let's read that again. It says that all changed within the 1980s Argentina debt crisis, following the sharp rise in worldwide oil prices during the 1970s. International banks led by the Rockefeller Family Bank, Chase Manhattan, Citibank, Chemical Bank, Bank of Boston, and Barclays, among others, sold loans to countries like Argentina on initially very attractive terms. All right, and that's how the elites get rich. They give loans to countries, entire governments, and then they charge interest on those loans. All right, and that's how they profit. All right, it says the loans were to finance the import of much needed oil among other countries. As long as London interest rates remain low, those loans could be serviced from national income. All right, the loans therefore quickly proved to be enormously alluring, and so the dollar debts rose drastically. All right, that's how you put a nation in debt. All right, all right, and then you become a slave when you're in debt. All right, it says in October 1979, all right, in order to prevent the dollar from collapsing, the U.S. Federal Reserve suddenly raised its major interest rate by some 300%, impacting worldwide interest rates. And above all, the floating rate of interest on Argentina's foreign debt. By 1982, Argentina was caught in a debt trap not unlike that which the British had used in the 1880s to take control of the Suez Canal from Egypt. All right, New York bankers led by David Rockefeller had learned the lessons of British debt imperialism. All right, let's keep reading. It says, breaking Argentina's national will. During its earlier era of Peronism, Argentina had combined a strong and well organized trade union movement with a central state heavily involved in the economy. Both of these cooperated with select private companies under a regulated model. During the peaceful era of post war world economic expansion, it had certain features similar to the Scandinavian democratic model. Furthermore, Peronism, whatever its shortfalls, had created a strong national identity among the Argentina population. The Peron era came to a bloody end in 1976 with a military coup and regime change backed by Washington. All right. It said the coup was justified on the argument that it was to counter growing terrorism and communist insurgency in the country. That sounds familiar, right? Well, what you know what what the U.S. is doing with Venezuela right now, right? They got some argument, some fake ass reason, to go into the Venezuela, man. Right? It says later investigations revealed that the guerrilla danger from the People's Revolutionary Army and the Montoneros, all right, had been fabricated by the Argentine military, most of whose leaders had been trained in domestic counterinsurgency techniques by the U.S. Pentagon in the notorious U.S. Army School of the Americas. All right, the military dictatorship of President George Videla, all right, however, would turn out to be too liberal in its definition of human rights and due process of law. In October 1976, Argentine Foreign Minister Admiral Cesar Guzzetti, all right, met with Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, all right, and Vice President Nelson Rockefeller in Washington. The meeting was to discuss the military's junta's proposal for massive repression of opposition in the country. According to declassified United States Department documents released only years later, Kissinger and Rockefeller not only indicated their approval, but Rockefeller even suggested specific key individuals in Argentina to be targeted for elimination. All right? At least 15,000 intellectuals, labor leaders, and opposition figures disappeared in the so-called Dirty War. The Rockefeller family played more than an incidental role in the Argentine regime change. A key actor in the junta regime, all right, economics minister Martinez de Hoz, all right, had close connections to David Rockefeller's Chase Manhattan Bank and was a personal friend of his, all right. Martinez de Hoz, all right, was head of the wealthiest land-owning family in Argentina. He introduced radical economic policies designed to favor foreign investment in Argentina. In fact, this economic maneuvering was the very reason behind Rockefeller's secret backing of the junta in the first place. Large infusions of cash from Rockefeller's bank had privately financed the military seizure of power. All right? I'm going to leave it right there, all right? So if it be the Lord's will for me to do a part 2, I'll do a part 2. All right? So Lord willing, this lesson is edifying or was edifying. Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Rataza. This lesson is edifying, all right? So with that being said, unto the next one, shalom, shalom.